the ancient Roman bathhouse, a place that was much more than just a spot to get clean. It was a central hub of Roman life, a place for socializing, exercising, and even conducting business. Let's dive into the fascinating world of Roman bathhouses. A testament to the activities that took place there. Romans frequently lost valuable possessions while bathing. As Archaeological Magazine notes, Romans lost all sorts of precious items, including jewelry, hairpins, and pendants while bathing. Many of the artifacts that have been discovered in the drains flowing under these structures, such as perfume jars, oil flax, nail cleaners, and tweezers. A large number of the finds were related to hygienic practices of the Romans and offered a glimpse into their priorities. These small finds, as Whitmore calls them, range from the mundane to the precious: rings, coins, and even medical and dental tools. One common artifact that has been uncovered at many of the sites is a strigil, a tool used to scrape the skin clean after oiling. These finds have highlighted the multifaceted nature of bathhouses. As Whitmore observes, the wide variety of the finds really drives home that baths weren't just for bathing, but a major social center in which people performed a number of different activities while spending time with their friends. The bathhouse was truly essential to Roman life. Public bath, functioning as a hygienic and social center, was among the most important public spaces in the Roman world. She points out that for most Romans, public baths were a necessity, as few could afford private bathing facilities in their own homes. By the 4th century CE, Rome boasted over 900 public bathhouses, and tens of thousands more were scattered throughout the Roman Empire. From Hadrian's Wall in England, depicted in the History Channel series Vikings, Dura Europus in modern-day Syria, the bathhouse was a ubiquitous symbol of the Roman civilization. The bathhouse offered a wide array of activities beyond hygiene. Romans could exercise, play sports, eat, drink, gamble, and socialize. Some of the bathhouses even had theaters and libraries. These spaces were open to all: men, women, children, rich and poor, slave and free. The bathhouse was a place to see and be seen, to display one's wealth and physique. The experience wasn't always serene. The philosopher Seneca, who lived above a bathhouse, vividly describes the cacophony. When your strenuous gentleman, for example, is exercising himself by flourishing leaden weights, when he is working hard or else pretends to be working hard, I can hear him grunt, and a resting sound of the cake seller and his varied cries, the sausage man, the confectioner, and all the vendors of food hawkers with their wares, each with its own distinctive intonation. While Seneca may not have enjoyed the hundreds, if not thousands, of bathers, he did give us a first-hand picture of what the daily activities of bathhouses were like. Romans followed a specific bathing process. When they first arrived at the bath, they would change from their street clothes in the podaterium, which was the Roman version of a locker room. With no locker, they would often leave a slave to stand guard over their belongings. Once changed, the sequence began with exercise in the palestra, with workouts including wrestling, weightlifting, ball games, and running. It was important to work up a good sweat to remove bad humors from the body. This was an essential step before entering the pools and saunas. The bathhouse played a key role in Roman health and fitness. Celsus, in De Medicina, discussed the therapeutic benefits of bathing, advising on routines following physical exertion. The next step in the process was the tepidarium, a warm room with a warm pool. At this stage, the bather could relax from his exercise while keeping his pores open and preparing his body for the next room. Following the tepidarium, bathers then moved into the hottest room and pool in the cycle, the calidarium, which housed both steam room and hot pool. Finally, they would return to a cool pool in the frigidarium, take a plunge, and close up their pores. Afterwards, bathers would socialize, receive massages, or have their hair plucked. Romans visited the bathhouse daily, making them perhaps the fittest, cleanest, and most well-groomed society in history. Based on bath mosaics found near Rome, they're not dissimilar to bathing suits today. Larger bathhouses often had separate facilities for men and women, sometimes in mirrored wings. However, mixed gender bathing was not uncommon, particularly in the warm and hot pools. In the large bathhouses, all three pools, the frigidarium, the tepidarium, and the caldarium, were found both in gender-separated wings and also in the larger central areas of the bathhouse, which were open to all bathers. It is clear from several sources that these baths could get quite salacious, with some bathhouses well known for their saucy reputation. Seneca famously wrote, "Baths, wine, and sex spoil our bodies, but baths, wine, and sex make up life." Roman engineering ensured constant supply of fresh water to the baths. Water was stored in cisterns, allowing for continuous flushing and daily cleaning. While not chlorinated like we have in our pools today, the flow of water through the entire system ensured relatively clean water. Hot pools, the tepidarium, the caldarium, were heated by a hypocast system, a vast network of tunnels and rooms that housed furnaces for heating the water and air. It wasn't just engineering. It took hundreds of slaves to keep the bathhouse clean and operational. The scale of the operation reminds me of Disneyland, where scores of workers are hidden away quietly, ensuring a smooth and pleasurable experience for the guests. Unlike Disneyland, the staff was mostly slaves. The hypocast was operated and maintained by dozens of slaves that labored in miserable conditions to keep the furnaces burning. In addition to the hypocast and hydraulic systems, they maintained and operated a variety of valves and sluices that regulated water flow. To understand the scale of this operation, the underground hypocast system at Caracalla Bath had 50 furnaces and 2 miles of tunnels distributing heat. At night, crews cleaned the sprawling structure, including draining and scrubbing down each of the pools approximately weekly. Rome was a city of unimaginable architecture, and the bathhouses were no exception. In fact, the great bathhouses of Diocletian and Caracalla were of the most impressive of Rome's buildings. They were not just bathhouses, they were colossal complexes of fitness and leisure. What's more, they were symbols of Rome's grandeur and sophistication. The baths of Diocletian were the largest of the monumental community baths constructed in the Roman Empire. In 298 CE, Emperor Diocletian started this project and finished 8 years later in 306. Quite a feat for a complex covering 32 acres, with many of the buildings still standing and in use to this day. The baths of Diocletian were massive. It was designed to serve 3,000 bathers in one day. However, it is believed that on its peak days, it could house 10,000. The emperor spared no expense in the decorations, which included frescoes, mosaics, sculptures, and marble finishes. Again, it was a testament to the power and wealth of Rome. Massive aqueducts and waterworks were created to support the vast amount of water flowing through the city daily. The amazing baths of Diocletian were in continual use from 306 to 537. 231 years after they were built, the aqueducts were destroyed in the Gothic Wars. I would like to see how many of our public swimming pools today and recreation centers can last that long. This wasn't the end of the famous bathhouse. In 1561, Michelangelo restored parts of the bath into the Basilica of Santa Maria of Angels and Martyrs, which still is in operation today. In addition, sections of the bath that had been used as storage were repurposed for the National Roman Museum. It is a wonder that these buildings have stood the test of time and continue to be useful, inspiring structures. While not quite as big as Diocletian, the baths of Caracalla were still staggering in size. Commissioned around 212 CE by the Emperor Caracalla, these massive complexes served the population of South Rome and required a dedicated branch of the Aqua Marcia aqueduct to support the water demand. The sheer scale of Caracalla is immense. The primary bathing complex, essentially the center of the main building, was 750 feet by 380 feet, or, if you like, 285,000 square feet, and contained three massive pools. That would be over 21 Olympic swimming pools combined, and large enough to accommodate up to 8,000 bathers simultaneously. Like Diocletian, these baths were lavishly adorned on the walls, ceilings, floors, and niches with the most opulent finishes. Marble floors and walls, intricate mosaics featuring a bather among a wide variety of other subjects, painted stucco, and marble statues that graced every visible surface. It would have been a wonder to behold. Vaulted ceilings 5 stories high, columns, gardens, and soaring stonework that added to the impressive scene. Again, the Gothic wars in the 6th century destroyed the aqueducts supplying the baths, and they quickly fell into disrepair under Gothic rule. Unlike Diocletian, the collapsing walls of Caracalla were not saved by a restoration project. However, the decaying ruins are still impressive and offer a glimpse into the grandeur of Roman public life and have even inspired architecture over the centuries. These two massive municipal projects, the Baths of Diocletian and the Baths of Caracalla, are a seemingly timeless reminder of the power and wealth of Roman civilization, and a vivid insight into Roman daily life. Roman baths were not just for bathing, they were a fundamental hub of social life, recreation, and civic life. All of this would not have been possible without water. The amount of water used on a daily basis measured on the obscene. Combined, these two civic bathhouses used 4.6 million gallons of water a day. To put this into perspective, the average water usage in the U.S. is about 82 gallons per person per day. That is the equivalent of the daily use of over 56,000 people in the U.S. today, essentially a small city. And remember, this was only two of the hundreds of operating bathhouses in the city. Granted, these two bathhouses were the biggest, but there were also many other grand baths as well. Rome relied on the Tiber River system and 11 aqueducts to supply its endless waterworks projects. The Romans were master engineers and builders, which is most evident in the systems of aqueducts that funneled water from high rivers and lakes into the heart of Rome. Unlike canals like the Central Arizona project, these aqueducts were marvels of engineering. They were beautiful stone and brick structures that conveyed large volumes of water hundreds of feet above the ground over undulating hills and valleys. Interestingly, the distance of aqueducts serving Rome is about the same as the entire Arizona project, each over 300 miles long. While the population grew in Rome, so too did the demand for water. The Tiber, a major river that snaked through Rome, provided some water, but it could become polluted and was subject to seasonal change. So, like all good building societies, the Romans took matters into their own hands and embarked on a project of aqueduct building that lasted for centuries. While the essential need for hygiene was maybe the origin behavior that drew all Romans to an afternoon bath, Roman bathhouses were far more than just a place to wash the dust off their ancient feet. It was the very heart of Roman society, a place where people of all classes and races came together, to eat, to drink, and lounge in and out of the pools. The baths were fundamental to daily life. The baths were much a ritual as their very temples and religious worship. They would enter through a grand entrance, change their street clothes, and be in a palace where the body was worshipped. It was exercise, purified through hot steam rooms, hot baths, and sweating, then followed a very ritualized process from the palaestra to the tepidarium to the caldarium and then to the frigidarium. The point was health and body. Beauty was fundamental factor in the stance. As mentioned before, Romans came to the baths to see and be seen, a personal display of power and beauty. The grand and opulent bathhouses offered the ideal backdrop for the personal pageantry, a true microcosm of Rome.